This is 13-year-old Amanda Dowler, Mille, to her friends and family. In March 2002, while on her way home from school, she vanished.
I don't know whether it's like sisterly instinct, but I definitely knew I'm never going to see her again.
The mystery of what happened to Mille that day dominated the headlines.
Desperately worried, and we just want to have Mille back home with us so much.
But 6 months later, her remains were found over 20 miles away. She had been brutally killed. Last week, this man, Levi Bellfield, was found guilty of her abduction and murder.
Did you, Levi Bellfield, have anything to do with the kidnap and murder of Mille Dowler?
No comment.
He's a convicted serial killer, believed to be responsible for attacking over 30 young women.
He's domineering, overpowering, controlling and possessive, topped off with massive violence. The man is a monster.
Tonight, in a Crime Watch special, we speak exclusively to Gemma Dowler about the agony of losing her sister.
It's like you're in a constant nightmare, just waking up, just waiting to be woken up and saying, don't worry, it was only a dream.
And seeing her parents take the stand at the Old Bailey to defend their family's reputation.
The first 2 days when my mum and dad were questioned by the defence and the prosecution was probably worse than the day that she went missing.
And we'll reveal how a chance call to detectives would provide the crucial breakthrough on a case that shocked the nation.
The senior investigating officer at the time, who took the call, said that the hairs on the back of his neck stood up as they were talking about the person, and the team believed that they had their first real breakthrough.
Tell me about your sister. What was she like?
She was a vivacious, very friendly, very approachable. She always had a twinkle in her eyes, and she just was an infectious person that everybody wanted to be around. Once you met her for the first time, you automatically wanted to be her friend. She was the best sister anyone could ever ask for. I'm lucky to have had her for 13 years.
On the afternoon of the 21st of March 2002, 13-year-old Mille Dowler caught the train home from school. But minutes after leaving Walton-on-Thames station, she vanished.
If you don't mind, I want to ask you a little bit about what happened. I'm going to ask you to go back to 2002, and that day for you, what, it just starts like any other day, does it?
Yeah, it started like a normal day. At school, we didn't really see each other very much because we were in different years, different lessons. We might have seen each other like once or twice in the playground. And then I got in at about, I think it was like 5 o'clock. Dad was in the office working, and I was like, where's Mille? And then he was like, oh, she's supposed to be home by now. I thought you would have picked her up. And then that's as soon as I heard Dad say she's not home, I was just like, oh, God. I knew as soon as, I don't know whether it was like sisterly instinct, but I definitely knew I was never going to see her again.
Did you express that to your mum and dad? Did you say to them that's...
Yeah, Mum and Dad felt exactly the same way.
Did they?
Yeah. Like, I think it was 7 o'clock we called the police, and then I was just like, that's it. I knew straight away.
That call would spark one of Britain's biggest ever murder inquiries, involving over 100 police officers.
Maria, tell me what you remember of March the 21st, 2002.
Well, that day I was actually working at Guildford Police Station because in those days the major crime team was split into 3 different sections. We were aware that they had a missing girl over at the Staines branch of the major crime team. We knew she was 13 years old and the circumstances in which she'd gone missing.
And in those early hours, how concerned were you?
Mille wasn't the sort of girl that presented as a runaway, that's somebody that would have gone missing. She came from a happy family, a family that seemed to love to have fun, but raised the alarm very quickly that she'd gone missing. So there was nothing to indicate that Mille had chosen to leave home and not tell anybody about it. So we knew very, very quickly, on the 21st, we knew that we were dealing with something quite serious.
Mille Dowler was born on the 25th of June 1988 in Walton-on-Thames in Surrey. She lived with her parents, Bob and Sally, and older sister, Gemma, and went to school in nearby Weybridge.
So you were sisters, obviously, but it sort of sounds like you were really good friends, proper friends.
Yeah, we were. Before she went missing, we were actually sharing the same room, even though we had two rooms, because we just got really, really close. We slept in the same room, so we could stay up late and gossip and probably have midnight feasts of sweets that we'd stolen from the fridge. But yeah, I would consider her as one of my best friends.
Sweet, kind, generous. If you were down, and you've always got that friend, you know that if you could call or, you know, meet up with them, they'll just brighten up your day completely. Yeah, 1 in a million she was.
She was beautiful. I don't think anyone can deny that. A fantastic musician, a real people person. She seemed to light a room up when she walked into it, just with her silliness and love for life.
Tell me what home life was like.
It was really, really nice. Our family is one of those families that's so laid back that if anyone came round, they just come to the house and feel so relaxed. My mum and dad were the nicest people you could ever meet, basically. And I'm so lucky that I have them as parents. I wouldn't have got through any of this without them.
On Thursday, the 21st of March 2002, Mille left Heathside School in Weybridge as normal at 3:05. She then walked to the train station with her friend Danielle. CCTV shows the schoolgirls entering the station and on the platform. This is the last time Mille's seen on camera.
We'd spoken about the fact that we hadn't had a catch-up in a little while and that it was well overdue, so we decided that we'd walk to the train station together. She was in a really good, playful, fun mood. The two of us were bouncing off each other as usual. We got off at Walton. That's not normally the stop that she'd get off at. I said to her, would she like to come off and get some chips from the cafe? And after a bit of banter between the two of us, she agreed that she'd come and join me. So we went into the cafe. There were a couple of other boys there from our school, but the two of us sat together and, again, discussed more about boys and various other things.
At 3:47, Mille phoned home.
She never had credit, so we borrowed one of the boys that was in the cafe, we borrowed his phone.
Hey, Dad. It's Mille.
She made a phone call to her dad to tell him that she'd be home late. It's something that we would always do so that they didn't worry.
Yeah, no, I'll be home for tea.
Are you ready? Come on.
Well, my sister arrived and didn't want to wait around at the cafe, so she ushered us out quite quickly.
I'll see you tomorrow. OK.
I said to her, will you be all right walking home on your own? We were all looked after each other, but we live in a nice area. It was broad daylight. She was walking along a main road. Obviously, I double-checked with her, and the question itself seemed silly. She laughed and just said, don't be ridiculous, I'll be absolutely fine. There was no reason why she shouldn't have been. And that was the last time that I saw her.
Mille left the station just after 4, setting off alone down Station Avenue. At 8 minutes past, a friend of Gemma's waiting at the bus stop spotted her.
I was just there waiting for my bus, and Millie was walking on the other side of the road, and it must have been within 30 seconds, maybe up to a minute, that my bus came round to pick me up. Jumped on the bus and looked out for her, and I didn't see her. At the time, obviously didn't think too much of it, thought it was a bit strange, thought that I would have seen her walking if her intention was to go home. But at that time, you don't really think too much into it. So that's what happened, and I just carried on and went home.
That was the last time anyone had seen Millie.
At that time, there's not many people walking down the road. Also, it had been a few minutes that had passed since the train arrived, so the rush had already gone from people which were walking back home. So it wasn't busy, but there were always cars driving by. So you would have thought that something might have been heard or seen, but as it turns out, there was nothing.
As it stood at 8 minutes past 4 on that day, the trail runs cold. That's
Absolutely.
all the definite information you had.
Yes. Yeah.
What do you do with that situation at that point?
It was that afternoon that the appeal started to go out for Millie and Have You Seen Her? We need people's memories on that day, because as you go through life, the next day soon merges into the day before. So we need people to think very, very quickly about whether they'd seen her.
Police in Surrey say they're growing increasingly concerned about the safety of a 13-year-old girl who hasn't been seen since Thursday afternoon.
Over the next days and weeks, news of Millie's disappearance was rarely off our screens and newspapers.
Seeing it happen here in your own area, it's very close to reality. It's very scary.
Within the last hour, the parents of the missing 13-year-old schoolgirl Amanda Dowler have made a public appeal for help in finding her.
Unbelievable. We're devastated. We're just so desperately worried, and we just want to have Millie back home with us so much.
For days on end, it was on the front page of every newspaper. Was that something you could take in? And, you know, this was the person who you
No,
were,
it was completely surreal. Our private life was no longer private, and the family life that we had was just completely turned upside down. I can remember seeing one of the papers, and we were on the front page, like a family photo of us, and I was just like, this is so serious now. It's like you're in a constant nightmare, just waiting to be woken up and saying, don't worry, it was only a dream, but our nightmare is true.
Why do you think it was that Millie Dowler going missing so captured the attention of the nation?
Well, she was a lovely, happy teenage girl just on, you know, the start of her life. I mean, she's a beautiful little girl, and her face sort of captured the hearts of many people.
Just 7 days after she'd disappeared, Millie's last known movements were reconstructed on Crime Watch, and her parents made another heartbreaking appeal for information about their lost daughter.
I'd say if someone has taken Millie and is holding her, then please, please give her back to us. You can't believe the enormous grief it's caused the family and her friends and everybody that knows her. It's just been absolutely awful. We're absolutely devastated.
It was a matter of just days later that the reconstruction was run on Crime Watch. What impact do you think that had on the case and the investigation?
It's something we always do, because we always want to keep Millie live in the memories and thoughts of the general public. So we have to keep pumping that message out, that anything, however small, please tell us.
In the first 2 weeks of the investigation, police received over 4,000 calls from the public.
We had at least 73 areas of the UK where she was sighted on more than one occasion. We had a sighting of her in Fiji. We had a sighting of her on the Isle of Wight ferry. We had numerous sightings of somebody that they thought looked like Millie. So from all that information, we have to sift through, and it takes an enormous amount of staff resources and time to get through that.
One of the first things detectives did was to look at CCTV of Millie's route home to see if they could find any trace of her after she was seen on Station Avenue.
What did you find?
Well, the CCTV on Station Avenue was owned by Birdseye, and on either side of the corners of the front of that building are 2 revolving cameras. Now, they go the full way round, and at times they're actually at the back of the building, obviously, but they swing round and they capture virtually the whole of Station Avenue.
What did you see?
She was never picked up. When you look at CCTV and it points onto a road where we knew that Mille had been, you don't expect not to see her, which was one of the first problems that sort of presented itself to us. And on that day, it was very sunny and it had been raining, so there's water on the lens, and at points in the revolutions of the cameras, the view is obliterated by the sunlight. So again, you have to do further work to try and look through that sunlight to make sure she wasn't captured.
Detectives began researching what could be done to improve the footage. The answer was found over 3,000 miles away.
We went to anybody we could think of that had worked with CCTV, and we didn't limit ourselves to the experts within our country. We wanted to make sure that we could answer that question. You know, where was Mille? Why didn't she appear on that CCTV? So that's why we farmed it out to the FBI.
After working on the footage for 6 long months, the experts at the FBI spotted something.
It was a sports car that was on Station Avenue that was driving sort of towards the railway station. You could see a figure standing next to the passenger window, and they appeared to be talking to the people that were sat inside the car. We actually thought at that point that this could have been Mille.
This blurry image was sent to vehicle specialists who were able to determine the exact make and model. It was a rare Mazda MX-6 sports car. Only around 5,000 of them had been sold in the UK.
At that moment, for you and the rest of the team, did it feel like a breakthrough?
Absolutely, yeah, it did. We obviously put the appeal out in the media for that person to come forward, and they actually phoned up that day and identified themselves, and it actually turned out to be a mum and son innocently in Station Avenue. I think they were going to an estate agent's about a property, so yeah, very quickly it wasn't Mille and it wasn't what we were looking for.
Then, in September, Mille's family received the news that they had been dreading.
Police investigating the disappearance of Amanda Dowler have visited Woodland in Hampshire, where human remains were found on Wednesday.
2 people walking find the remains of a body. How do you hear about that?
They were a couple that would go mushroom picking. They'd gone in there because it was a perfect area for the growing of rare mushrooms, and they would collect them and sell them. And they'd gone into Walton Police Station to report that they'd found what they believed to be Mille Dowler.
Did you go to the site?
Yes, I did, yeah, that night.
When you walked to the site, did you yourself have a feeling?
Yes, I did. I thought that it was Mille.
24 hours later, police confirmed that the remains were those of the missing schoolgirl.
She compared the remains found in Yateley Heath Wood yesterday with the dental records of Amanda Dowler. We can now confirm the results of the examination was almost certainly those of the missing Amanda.
I was in the house and my mum was in the garden, and then my mum just collapsed, and I was just like, oh my goodness. That was just the worst feeling, because there's absolutely nothing you can do. I can't console her. My dad couldn't console her. All she wanted was Mille back, and no one could do anything to help that. Well, we all did.
The investigation was now a murder inquiry.
Did the post-mortem tell you anything about how Mille had died?
It didn't tell us how she died, but we knew that she didn't have any of her clothing and that she had been lain on top of the ground. She hadn't been buried. So we knew it wasn't a natural death.
So the area that you found the body in, what could you learn from that?
As soon as we found Mille, we got certain experts in to look at the wooded area that she'd been found in. And we used pollen experts and also experts that would be able to tell us about the foliage that had grown up around Mille. And they were able to tell us that Mille had been left there in the actual week that she'd gone missing. So we were able to track back to the week of the 21st.
Exactly a year after she had first disappeared, Millie's family could finally lay her to rest.
Just unbelievable amount of sadness, but a sense of relief that no one could hurt her anymore. She was safe and we could say goodbye properly. Now she's safe with the angels and they're looking after her, and I know that she'll be watching down on us, and that gives me strength when I'm having a really bad day.
But for Surrey police, the investigation was far from over.
Inevitably, of course, in the way that the media works, it stops being front-page news. It would be easy for people to get the impression that what happens then is that the investigation is winding down. How was it from the inside?
We never stopped. There was always a core team working on the investigation. I don't think we ever had less than 50 officers at any one time working through those years. We never gave up hope. Never.
And their faith was finally rewarded. When 20 months later the team received a chance phone call, the information provided would radically change the direction of the investigation and provide the crucial breakthrough they had been so desperate for.
The information actually came from Metropolitan Police, and it was an officer that used to work with Surrey Police, and he transferred to the Metropolitan Police. Now, DCI Sutton was investigating a string of offences within the London area of murders of young girls. And when he was looking through the profile of the person they were looking at for their jobs, Colin Sutton noticed that one of this man's previous addresses was 24 Collingwood Place.
This is the entrance to that address. It's less than 100 yards away from where Mille was last seen.
The senior investigating officer at the time, who took the call, said that the hairs on the back of his neck stood up as they were talking about the person, where this person had lived, how close he'd been to the last sighting of Mille, and the team believed that they had their first real breakthrough.
That person was Levi Bellfield. Bellfield was born on the 17th of May 1968 in Isleworth, southwest London. He lived with his parents and was the youngest of 4. When he was just 10 years old, his father died from a heart attack. Just 3 years later, he committed his first offences: burglary and theft.
It's not something that starts off as a determination to go out and kill. It starts off with learning that some sort of feeling of achievement or self-worth or power is generated by physical aggression. The roots of that are bound to be quite involved and quite complicated. They must have their basis in part in the family, and inevitably it always comes back to his relationship with his parents.
Bellfield left school at the age of 16 and followed in his father's footsteps by training as a mechanic. He later moved into the security industry, working as a doorman and setting up his own car clamping business, often operating illegally.
So what you have is an individual in a state where they will draw on violence to achieve certain objectives in their life. Possibly to begin with, this is in almost semi-legitimate situations, like in Bellfield's case, where he was a bouncer and he was involved in clamping cars and so on, where he needed his physical presence to actually get away with what he was doing.
By the time he reached his 30s, Bellfield had added drugs offences, possession of weapons, violent assaults, and making threats to kill to his convictions. His previous partners knew only too well of his violent temper.
1 minute charming and sweet, and like someone had flicked a switch, he would just go psychotic on you. He'd punch you, bite you, kick you, burn you with cigarettes, all sorts of things, try and push you down the stairs.
He sees women as objects that need to be controlled, and he is willing to use extreme violence in order to get them to behave the way he wants.
You couldn't leave him. He wouldn't allow you to leave him. He ruled my life. You weren't allowed to answer a phone, or the door, open your post or anything without him there.
2 years after Mille was taken, The investigation at last had a potential suspect, but a crucial opportunity was missed.
The area of Collingwood Place, and particularly the door marked number 24, had that come up in your investigations?
No, it would have been involved in the house-to-house that we had conducted at the beginning of the investigation.
So the door would have been knocked on?
Yes, that door was actually knocked on 11 times by our officers, but the door was never answered. And the officers didn't follow up with the letting agency as to who was living in the flat at that time.
When you look back on that now, what do you think?
Hindsight's a wonderful thing, and things could have been very, very different if we'd actually spoken to him. But also, he could have lied to us and covered his tracks. So our position may have been no different than we are in today.
By the time Bellfield came on to Surrey Police's radar, he was already the prime suspect for 2 murders in southwest London and a possible further 30 assaults on women in the area. The Metropolitan Police investigation into the attacks was called Operation Yedis.
Yedis started as the investigation into the murder of Mille de Lagrange on the 19th of August 2004 in Twickenham.
22-year-old French student Amélie de Lagrange had moved to the UK in 2002. She lived in a bedsit close to Twickenham Green and worked at a cafe in Richmond.
Amélie had been out with friends in Twickenham that night. She'd got the bus home, a short distance to Twickenham Green. In actual fact, she missed her stop and didn't get off of the bus until it reached Fulwell. So she walked back down the road, the same road the bus had come along, and will have taken the shortcut across Twickenham Green. And of course, she only reached halfway before she was murdered.
Amélie had been hit around the back of the head with a blunt weapon, possibly a hammer. She was found unconscious and later died in hospital. A temporary police station was set up on Twickenham Green to appeal to the public for help.
We received a lot of information about males with a penchant perhaps for domestic violence. We were passed over 100 names from members of the public, and one of those was Levi Bellfield. When you first meet him, your immediate impression would be that he's a jovial, wants to be your friend. But that belies the fact that he is an extremely violent individual, particularly towards women. He's domineering, overpowering, controlling and possessive, topped off with massive violence.
Bellfield confessed to one of his partners that he hated women and that he had been going out at night looking for them.
And at the back of my old house there used to be an alleyway that ran alongside of the train tracks. And once you'd got into the alley, you couldn't get out until you got to the other end. And he told me he used to go down there and wait for people, like try and get a girl on their own. But because there was obviously people coming off trains, there would be quite, too many people, and he wouldn't be able to actually get one on his own, and it used to infuriate him.
As part of the investigation into Amélie's murder, detectives also looked at other unsolved attacks in the area to see if any had the same profile. On the 4th of February 2003, 19-year-old Marcia MacDonald was killed on her way home in Hampton, southwest London. Like Amélie, she had received a fatal blow to the back of the head, inflicted by a hammer-like weapon. And that wasn't the only connection between the attacks.
There were clear similarities between the attacks on Amélie and Marcia. They're both of a similar description. They were late at night, they were both alone, they'd both got off of a bus. The fact that they both received such severe injuries to their head, you have to say, well, it could be the work of one man.
Another attack just a few miles away in Isleworth seemed to demonstrate the extreme violence this man was capable of.
It was my last day of school, so we had a big celebration during the day, which involved a mass and a party afterwards. At the end of the night, me and a couple of friends left the pub. I got on one bus and they got on a different bus going the other direction. at the stop I got off, I was the only person to alight, sort of walk home on the same side as I got off the bus. As I continued to walk down the road, I saw a vehicle parked up on the side of the road. The first thing that sort of brought my attention to it was I heard the car engine running, but I couldn't see any lights on, which I thought was a little bit strange. But I don't know, I just got a very bad feeling from it, so I crossed the road and the car sort of flashed its lights and turned its engine on. I do remember feeling the impact, just being completely winded. When it first hit me, I don't even know if I made any sound, I think barely. It then sort of reversed straight back over the same area until it was completely over my body. I just felt completely crushed, like as if you were in a vice, but instead, it was a car on a pavement.
And where does it hurt?
Everywhere. The car stopped and took me out.
Yeah.
Stopped me again. She ran over me.
He ran over you again?
Yeah.
So he ran over you twice?
Yeah. And I really hurt.
Amazingly, Kate made a full recovery and was able to describe in some detail the vehicle which ran over her. It was a white people carrier with blacked out windows, and the passenger side wing mirror was broken.
We found that the CCTV that was available showed a white people carrier following the bus. We also see from the CCTV after Kate's attack that the white people carrier speeds away from the scene.
The CCTV footage was sent to imagery experts who were able to identify the vehicle as a Toyota Previa. Bellfield owned this at the time of Kate's attack. It matched her description, even down to the damaged wing mirror. And those vehicles could be linked to Bellfield. By 2005, the Metropolitan Police had compelling evidence against Bellfield and the way he operated, but detectives in Surrey were only just beginning to build their case. On the 6th of July, he was interviewed for the first time about Mille's murder.
He's quite a physically quite a large individual, but he was quite quietly spoken. He was polite, by and large. He would refer to me as sir.
I think it's very important not to be intimidated in any way. But yes, always in your mind, you know that you're interviewing a very dangerous individual. Part of our strategy is to ask the question that everybody wants to ask Levi Bellfield. Did you, Levi Bellfield, have anything to do with the kidnap and murder of Mille Dowler?
No comment. We gave him many opportunities to stand up and say, look, I'm an innocent man, I'm not responsible for doing this.
You didn't deny it?
No comment.
You didn't say, it's not me?
No comment.
And at no stage over the last 2 days have you denied any involvement in these offences?
No comment.
Why is that, Levi?
No comment. I think if he was a truly innocent man, he would probably been able to give us some explanation for where he was and what he was doing that particular day. But he never took that opportunity.
At the conclusive interview, when we put everything that we had to him, it was extremely compelling to watch Levi Bellfield's demeanour.
I can remember quite clearly that at one stage during that interview that he started to perspire quite heavily. He then took off his sweater and he was sitting sort of quite squarely on the seat he had initially. And as Sarah continued to ask him the questions, he started to sort of rock back in the chair to the point where he was actually leaning on the wall behind him, so he actually had nowhere else to go.
His behaviour indicated to me
that he was exceptionally uncomfortable with the line of questioning.
When I came out of the interview, I was convinced as I could be that he was the right man and that he was responsible. Unfortunately, back in 2005, we weren't in a position to charge him. But I knew the inquiry wouldn't stop just because we'd interviewed him. It wasn't the end of the inquiry, it wasn't the last roll of the dice. And we knew that we would keep plugging away, and that's what we did.
With Bellfield refusing to talk, detectives began questioning the people who knew him best. A key witness was Emma Mills, his long-term girlfriend in 2002. He'd been living in her flat at the time of Mille's abduction.
Emma Mills, tell me what she was able to tell you.
She was obviously able to confirm that they had been living at 24 Collingwood Place. But at the time Mille went missing, she, the children and Levi were actually house-sitting away from Collingwood Place. So she was able to tell us that the apartment was empty over those few days. She was able to tell us that on the Thursday that Mille went missing, she didn't know where Levi Bellfield was. And in her mind, that was unusual. She believed that for that day he'd disappeared. Those were her exact words.
It wasn't until later that night that Bellfield finally showed up.
She said that he came home about sort of 11 o'clock on the evening of the 21st, and she believed that he'd changed his clothes from the clothes that he'd gone out in earlier that day. Now, they went to bed, and she said that he got up between 3 and 4 o'clock that morning and said that he wanted to go back to Collingwood Place for a lie-in. So he then got up out of their bed, got dressed, took their little dog, and, according to him, was going back to Collingwood Place.
The following day, Bellfield moved the family out of Collingwood Place, despite there still being 2 months left on the tenancy agreement.
The actual home that he wanted Emma to go back to, she describes as a squat. It didn't have any kitchen cupboards, it didn't have any kitchen floors. It was a mess. You would not take young children back to live in a place like that. But he was determined. I mean, it was so bad, they actually had to sleep on sofa cushions.
During the move, Emma noticed some of their things were missing.
She'd asked Bellfield, what did you do with our sheets? And he'd said, well, the dog messed on the bed. Now, Emma knew her dog. She knew that that dog didn't mess on the bed. So again, she was questioning what he had been doing, and she wasn't happy, or she didn't believe what he was saying. But she was asking again, what were you doing on the 21st? And Bellfield's response to her was, what do you think I've done, Mille? And Emma Mills describes her own personal reaction to that as complete and utter disgust. Why would you joke about something like that? And I don't even think at that point when she was asking him, she was expecting him to come back with that response. She thought he'd had another woman in the flat, not that he'd killed Mille Dowler.
They could now link Bellfield to where Mille was last seen, and through Emma, knew he was acting strangely around the time of her abduction. Speaking to another ex-partner gave them their next clue.
I've been involved with horses all my life, and as a child my dad used to take us to shows, and then when I got older I started doing show jumping more.
One of the events Joanna would regularly compete in was the Yateley Horse Show in Hampshire.
Levi knew about the woods from coming to Yateley Show with me and my horses. He came probably 5 or 6 times with me, and then we'd walk our dogs probably about the same amount of times, 5 or 6 times, around the common in the woods.
Detectives asked Joanna to show them where the couple had walked. Without realising, she led them to the area where Mille's remains had been discovered.
You can't understand his mentality, because his pleasure is other people's pain. That is how he works. But why would you want to do that sort of thing to a young girl?
The evidence against Bellfield was mounting up, but they still needed to prove he'd been on Station Avenue at the time of Mille's abduction. Again, Emma Mills was able to help.
We obviously spoke to Emma Mills at great length, and we basically started to unpick their lives. We wanted to know everything about them, and From our conversations with Emma, she told us that at that time they had a red Daewoo Nexia, which Levi had possession of on the 21st of March 2002.
OK, and what did you do next?
We went back to the Bird's Eye CCTV and we looked to see if we could see that vehicle in Station Avenue at the time that Mille went missing.
And they found this. It's a red Daewoo Nexia, turning off the street leading to Collingwood Place. The time is 4:33, just 25 minutes after Mille was last seen.
You must have felt almost like you'd won the lottery.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as we saw that, we knew that we were starting to build the case, and we desperately wanted to get that vehicle.
But Bellfield had reported the car stolen just 8 days after Mille's abduction.
How did you feel when you found out that Bellfield had reported that that car was missing, possibly stolen?
We were absolutely gutted that we couldn't get that car and have a look at it, because forensically for us, that could give us some evidence which would link Bellfield to Mille Dowler.
Did you believe it?
No.
At its whereabouts, uncovered a disturbing development. On the 20th of March 2002, the day before Mille vanished, 11-year-old Rachel Cowles was walking home after school in Upper Halliford, just 3 miles away from Walton-on-Thames.
I'd finished school about 3:15. The roads weren't that busy, still traffic. A car drove up to the side and stopped, and the guy leant over and said to me, "I've just moved in next door, would you like a lift home?" I know all the neighbours quite well, so it meant that I would have known if someone had moved in or moved out, and something clicked in my head that I shouldn't get into the car.
The incident was reported to Surrey police that day. Rachel described the driver as 30 to 40 years old with a round face, and was also able to give specific details of the car. It was a red hatchback and there were 2 child car seats in the back. Emma Mills was able to confirm that in 2002, her Daewoo matched this description.
Why had it not been picked up in the investigation before, and given that it happened just the day before the disappearance of Mille?
Even though it had been reported to Surrey Police as a whole, the day it had actually happened, it hadn't been filtered through to the incident room on the 21st.
The significant part of this is that it puts the car and the person who owned the car out driving through local streets, looking to pick up a young girl.
Yes, absolutely. But the significance of the red car wasn't known until we'd spoken to Emma Mills. It made the attempt to abduct Rachel the day before hugely significant.
Meanwhile, detectives in London had gathered enough evidence for their cases. And by May 2006, Levi Bellfield had been charged with the murders of Amélie Delagrange, Marcia MacDonald, and the attempted murder of Kate Sheedy. He denied any involvement.
Too many similarities, Levi. Too many similarities for the question not to be asked, and for you not to say why.
No comment.
No comment, because you can't say anything, can you?
But the Crown Prosecution Service asked that further work be carried out before deciding if Bellfield could be charged with Mille's murder.
This case has always been a circumstantial case. We've never had any direct forensic evidence to show that Bellfield killed Mille Dowler. So we had to work very hard to prove that he was the only person that could have killed her. So we had to rule out every other possibility. It's painstaking work and it is old-fashioned detective work. And I look at it as a jigsaw puzzle, and you never really know at what point you put that final piece in until it slots into place.
At this point, how certain are you that Levi Bellfield is the man?
I was probably 98% sure that we were looking at the person that had killed Mille.
On the 25th of February 2008, Bellfield was found guilty of the murders of Amélie Delagrange and Marcia MacDonald, and the attempted murder of Kate Sheedy. He was given 3 whole life terms, meaning he will never be released.
There was elation in the court upon his conviction. We were obviously pleased with the sentence that he was handed down. But I think you have to say that there's the side of Levi Bellfield that is clearly a coward. He could not, would not leave the cells and come and receive his sentence.
After nearly 5 months of having to endure the cowardly charade of innocence put forward by the defence, we at last get to see Levi Bellfield for what he truly is.
He showed no remorse at all. He's never given any explanation for what he did. In some ways, there's a little bit of closure there that's not there for families and victims, but it's just a mark of the man. The man is a monster.
Surrey police were now able to up the ante on their investigation, and as with the attacks in London, it would be the CCTV that would prove crucial.
We were working with that CCTV for many, many years. That CCTV should have caught Mille walking down Station Avenue on her route home. You have to analyse it to explain why she's not on it and why she didn't pass those cameras.
The images were sent to Andy Laws, a forensic imagery expert.
What was Andy Laws able to tell you?
That she hadn't managed to walk down Station Avenue. And I sort of asked him to tell me how he could be so certain that she didn't walk across the road and walk down the other side. Because when you look at the side where the cameras were, they would have looked across the road, and obviously there would have been vehicles passing, there were trees. So could they have obliterated the view of Mille as the CCTV camera rotated? So Andy sort of explained it to me, that if that had managed to happen, then Mille would have had to have been imitating Roadrunner. She would have had to run from one tree to another. As a vehicle high-sided past, she'd have to duck behind it. She'd have to know where those cameras were on their rotation to know when she had to hide and when she had to run. So although somebody could say to you, is it not actually possible? You would say, well, anything's possible, isn't it? But in this case, that most definitely did not happen. And Andy was also able to narrow down the exact area that she was abducted from, using the last sighting of her by Catherine Lanes, and also where the camera should have picked her up on its first rotation. He was able to narrow down for us that she was abducted from Station Avenue. And the only sort of residential areas you have in that area of Station Avenue are Collingwood Place.
At last, they could prove that Mille had been taken just yards from Bellfield's flat.
And that was it. That was the final piece.
After years of investigation, detectives were now confident they could show what happened to Mille after 4:08, and prove that Bellfield was her killer.
We believe that she was seen by Catherine Lanes as she left the railway station, and something caused her to cross the road. We don't know why Mille crossed the road.
But Bellfield was waiting, hidden in the hedges between Station Avenue and Collingwood Place, and he saw Mille walking alone.
The actual flat area is surrounded by really high hedges, and there's a little pathway walk-through that leads onto Station Avenue. I've stood there myself, and you are completely shrouded by the bush fencing so that people can't actually see you standing there. And you get a perfect view of Walton Railway Station and the people coming and going about their daily business. Well, I believe that Levi snatched Mille from the pavement and took her into 24 Collingwood Place. And there's only one person that knows what happened in that flat. But I believe that Mille was killed in that flat.
Just 25 minutes later, At 4:33, Bellfield leaves Walton-on-Thames in the Deu. Phone records show that he headed in the direction of West Drayton, where Emma was house-sitting. But he didn't arrive there until 11 p.m. For the rest of the day, he disappeared. He's never said where he was during those missing hours. At around 5 a.m., Bellfield sent to the Crown Prosecution Service, and on the 31st of March last year, they announced their decision.
After carefully reviewing all of the evidence in this case, I have now reached the decision that there is sufficient evidence and that it is in the public interest to charge Levi Bellfield.
Maria, how did you and your team feel when the Crown Prosecution Service came back and said, yes, we believe that you have enough of a case to charge Levi Bellfield?
Well, I didn't actually know it was their decision until I heard the words come out of Nigel Pilkington's mouth that day that we were standing in the CPS at Guildford in front of the TV cameras.
Tell me about that moment then. What did you think?
I was just so nervous. I don't know if you've ever had it, I'm sure you have, where you can feel and hear your heart in your throat. I just never thought I'd hear those words after all those years.
Eight weeks ago, the trial began at the Old Bailey. Bellfield refused to take the stand, instead turning attention towards Mille's parents. The last thing they expected was to feel that they were on trial.
The first 2 days when my mum and dad were questioned by the defence and the prosecution was probably worse than the day that she went missing. It was that extreme. It really was. It was so hard because we weren't allowed to be together, and I wanted to support my dad and my mum, and I couldn't because we were all witnesses. And you just can't explain how horrific it is in that courtroom until you are actually in there. It's so stressful.
How are your mum and dad now?
My mum and dad are really, really strong people, so they've struggled, especially my dad. And the hardest thing is I can't make it better and I can't help them. And I know they feel exactly the same way about me.
During the trial, Bellfield tried to deflect blame by suggesting that Mille had been an unhappy teenager who had run away from home.
How difficult has that been during the court case? To hear somebody described at times and you think, I don't even recognise that person that they're talking about.
Extremely, extremely difficult. That was one of the hardest things. They did just drag her name through the mud, but because I know what our family is like and what her friends were like, no one believed it. No one did, and everyone thought exactly the same thing. Like, she was a teenager. Teenagers write stupid things. I'm sure there would have been some letters like that from me when they searched the house as well, but they didn't bring those up. And I knew Mille. She loved everyone. She wanted to be liked. No one wants to be disliked. And she was so happy, and she was just such a lovely person. I feel like my heart's been torn out, and it's just, especially over the trial, I feel like it's just been trampled on. But I've just got to keep remembering that the Mille that I know wasn't how everyone's portrayed her in the media. She was the best sister anyone could ever ask for.
Last week, Bellfield was found guilty of abducting and murdering Mille. The verdict was unanimous. However, the jury was discharged without deciding if he had also attempted to kidnap Rachel Cowles.
The trial has been a truly horrifying ordeal for my family. We've had to relive all the emotions and thoughts of 9 years ago when Mille first went missing and was then found murdered. During our questioning, my wife and I both felt as if we were on trial.
We've had to lose our right to privacy and sit through day after harrowing day of the trial in order to get a man convicted of this brutal murder. For a mother to bury her child in any circumstances is truly agonising. But to bury your child when you know she died in such an appallingly awful way is terrible. A day does not pass when we do not think of her and the life that she might have led.
What has it meant to you to see Levi Bellfield convicted of this crime?
Justice. I mean, I knew that he would never come out of prison, but I have always believed that he killed Mille Dowler, and I wanted everybody else to know that that's what that man had